Rarely do you get such honesty and candor and plain speaking from people in positions of authority, let alone taking responsibility. Now, this is done in kind of a glib way, but let me talk about this individual named Ben Bernanke, who for a long time, was the chairman of the Federal Reserve, which is the central bank of the United States, chartered with Congress, members of it chosen by the president, and is a bank of banks for the United States. It also can change the money supply and make adjustments based on what these central bankers predict for the economy. That being said, their whole process of changing the money supply changes interest rates, which have effects elsewhere in the economy, and that's only one factor. In terms of studying an event like the Great Depression, it's often been said that the Great Depression was runaway of the free market or capitalism. However, the study of the history of that time demonstrates that was not true. It was not that people in positions of power were not intervening in the economy. The economists Milton Friedman and others have pointed out the effects of what led to the Great Depression because of the interventions of the Federal Reserve. It was founded in 1913 and has been the central bank of the United States ever since. The issues of these distortions. Now, Ben Bernanke comes about in modern time as a later leader in that central bank system of the Federal Reserve, or the Fed. Years later, he gives a speech at the celebration of the birthday of the economist Milton Friedman. And as he's talking through his appreciation of Friedman's work in economics, at the end, he makes an interesting statement about the Depression. And this is what he says in talking about, here he says, what I take from their work, this is Milton and Rose Friedman. Rose Friedman is Milton Friedman's wife, who worked with him as an economist on many of his works, said, what I take from their work is the idea that monetary forces, particularly if unleashed in a destabilizing direction, can be extremely powerful. Yes, that certainly is the case, that it can have all kinds of unintended consequences, done so by central bankers. Now, Friedman was arguing for stable monetary background in low and what he called low and stable inflation, meaning only changing the money supply, only adding to the money supply a little bit. Now, I have some disagreement with Milton Friedman there. However, listen to what Bernanke says about the Great Depression and whose fault or responsibility the Great Depression and the subsequent handling of the Great Depression, on whose shoulders did it lie? He says, let me end my talk by abusing slightly my status as an official representative of the Federal Reserve. I'd like to say to Milton and Anna, regarding the Depression, you're right. We did it. We're very sorry, but thanks to you, we won't do it again. In other words, even Bernanke in this position, extremely powerful banking monopoly over the United States, backed up by the US government, he admits about the Great Depression You're right. We did it. But his view is that they have learned from the mistakes of the past such that they will not do it again. We're very sorry, but thanks to you, we won't do it again. However, while minutia has been changed, the practice of adding to the money supply of the United States, causing inflation, is still the go-to practice of the Federal Reserve. And it's the go-to practice in the history of every central bank that causes these effects and distortions to take place in an economy that eventually are corrected by reality, which is called a recession or depression. But rarely, if ever, do you see people admitting with such candor, you're right, we did it.